And so now we are going to move into the first panel as voted by you. Earlier this morning, you would remember we held a poll. You had a number of options to go for to dictate what panels we were going to do this afternoon. So our first panel is going to be on landholder experiences in practical management. We are joined in Longreach by Mike Pratt and the chair of this session, Bob Shepherd. They are joined online by Angus White. He's in my bottom right-hand corner, and in the top beside me, just over this way, is James Henderson joining from Monto. Great to see both of you chaps again. Thanks for coming in. I'll hand over to you, Bob, and I'll see you back here in 15 minutes.
And thank you to the three producers for making themselves available this afternoon, James, Gus and Mike. There's any questions coming in, but that doesn't matter. Of material we can cover. And I guess when we're talking holder experiences, and primarily obviously in the rangelands, we talk about any business, whether it's a sheep business or a cattle business or a combination of the two. There's several things that are quite common across any grazing enterprise in the rangelands. So I thought we'd kick off with probably something that led on from one of the last sessions there before Smoko, and that was about the people in the business. And we talked down there about responsibilities, a little bit about training. Succession probably wasn't talked about, and I thought for something different, we might start off on succession. So I just wonder if we want to kick off with you, Gus, about, I'm not too sure how long you've been on Wyndham and, your plans for sort of what's going on over the next 10, 15 years. You want to kick off? I'll keep it fairly open.
Look, I guess in my experience, we went through. I've got a brother and a sister, both living in different areas. We went through a succession planning in early 2000s. It brought our family a lot closer together and gave everyone a complete understanding of what was going on.
Yes, the succession planning was what was holding us back from us achieving. And so we needed to complete that. And that was really important to us, and we've seen enormous benefit because once you've done a succession plan, start on that
road and everyone knows what they're working for and they can work in harmony and not with this over their head thinking, oh, gee, is this going to be mine or is it going to be someone else? Is it going to be split up? So really important.
All right, thanks very much, Gus. James, have you have you had to embark on or been involved in any succession planning in your experience on your property or other properties, family, etc.?
Yeah, we have. Obviously, myself, being chair of the Young Producers Council, I went through succession planning probably, it took the best part of 6 years. Our carbon projects actually formed part of our succession planning. They were essentially needed to help generate a bit of cash flow in outside of the business because it's non-agricultural income, as most people will be aware. So that actually has an advantage if you're doing succession planning. We like in the Young Producers Council, we try to refer to it as transition planning, not succession planning. It's a transition, it's not a succession. There's a subtle difference. And the importance of it is it's massive because it allows the change of ideas. And there's two distinct types of stages of it. There's the management side and there's actual transfer of assets. And they can be 10, 15 years apart. When someone might succession or transition to an actual planning stage, and that's when the younger generation effectively takes control. And that's very different to the actual transfer of assets, which usually occurs later on. But Look, it's a bit of a minefield, and it's very in the front of mind of finance institutions like banks. You'll see in their risk analysis, there is actually stuff for succession. I've been privileged to see a few risk analysis models from banks. They didn't give them up easily, but if you can get a hold of them, you'll see there is metrics they put around where you are in that, and at least have a plan. If you haven't talked about it, well, you probably should talk about it.
Yeah, thanks very much, James. Mike, do you want to reflect on your sort of involvement? I guess as a young fella through a person that we'll say is probably more mature, like yourself, or like myself in the industry, and how you've sort of found it and how it went for you.
Thanks, Bob. The critical thing is to have a clear understanding of what all the goals and aspirations are of all the family members in an unchallenged environment. And then once you've got a clear understanding of that, well, then that should be done earlier rather than later. And then you start to transition through a process to help each family member achieve those goals, whether it be on the family farm or in another line of occupation. There's no one size fits all. And it's probably one of the most important procedures to go through in any particular business. Critical to get it right. There's too many cases that I know of. We've all seen where things haven't worked out and family members aren't talking. They've lost that family connection, and that is so sad. So I would emphasise to know exactly what every family member wants in life, and to start early, plan it through, and then you'll only know that you've got it right is when it's all done and dusted, everything's been finalised, and you look back, and if all your siblings and family, children, etc., are still getting on in the same way they were before the succession plan started, you know you've got it right. And I just wish everybody luck in that regard, because it's not an easy journey, but it's critical to get it right.
Yeah, thanks very much, Mike. I mean, it's so important. You're right. I mean, we all know good examples and poor examples of where it has or hasn't worked. The other area that we didn't probably cover off a lot on in the conference was that of sort of financial management. And I guess for some producers, it's a bit of a sacred cow, and people keep their cards fairly close to their chest. Others are fairly open with their sort of financial information, and I guess the majority of producers are somewhere in between those two extremes. So I just thought we might talk a bit about debt management, whether equity is really important or whether it's not, and relationships with financial advisors or financiers. James, we might come to you because you did mention about the banks having succession as part of their check-off list of, when they work with a customer.
Well, look, the financial literacy stuff is vital. From the younger generation, it's getting more and more complicated. You really got to have your eye on the ball in these sorts of things. There are some really good ways that you can get better at what you do. Like, I know personally, we went through the key writer process. I've actually been through that 4 times for dairy, for sustainability loans and a few other things. And, it gives us the ability to reduce debt, but it forces you to put in plans in place. It forces you to enact upon them, and it forces you to get a greater understanding of your cash flow. So the best thing I did is I got a first start loan through Key Rider to kick off our succession, and straight away I had to learn pretty quick, exactly where the ins and outs of the business were, and I do believe in doing your own books. I do all my own book work, and then pass it on. The accountant has finished the programs are all. There's a plethora of programs out there that can do it for you. Doing the books and keeping them up to date, like I try to keep them up to date over a 2-week cycle. So you constantly know where you are. We don't pay bills at the end of the month or the end of the quarter anymore. We pay bills every week, and we try and log them into our system at least once a month, if not twice a month.
Yeah, thanks very much. Gus, would you like to comment on your sort of, approach to financial management side of the business? Looks like he's dropped out, has he?
No, Bob, I just turned my camera off. Hopefully you can hear me better.
Yeah, Gus, that's fine.
So just with I guess, financial management, I actually like to, I see Andrew's got a question in the question box about uptake of knowledge. So many farmers are introverted people. They live on their own and they're used to making decisions with a committee of 1 or 2 at the maximum, and don't have a large network of people and aren't used to dealing with them. It can sometimes be really difficult to for them to take up new information and sort of build on some of their financial knowledge. And that's just people who they are. And I just really see that the biggest barrier to taking on financial knowledge or building on any knowledge is really they need to build their network. And there's so many people out there that want to help farmers stay on the farm and want to help them do the right thing. They just need to tap into that. So I just encourage everyone to build their network and utilise those people around you. He plays some good things like Jamie said about his financial management. That's great.
Thanks very much, Gus. Mike, have you sort of found your approach to financial management side of the business, whether it's in sheep or wool or both?
Thanks, Bob. Well, finance has never really been my strong suit. We've always had a great great relationship with our banker and our accountant. But the one thing that only piece of advice I could potentially give, Bob, would be to make sure that you've always got enough money that you can access quickly when it's needed. And I mean, not only to do with maybe your health, but also to do with the grab opportunities. So one thing that, I think that we've tried to do is keep our radar on full beam, just waiting for those opportunities to come along and be ready to jump and grab them, because then there's not many out there. So you need to have reserves available, whether it could even be property purchase. But certainly for livestock purchase at the critical times where you can see an opportunity to make money. It might even be buying cattle and putting them on adjustment somewhere if it's at that time of the year and the potential wet season looming. So, Bob, I think my short answer would be leave it to the experts if you're not capable of looking after that side of the business as well as you should, but make sure there's enough sitting there ready to jump when the opportunity presents itself.
A bit of a reserve.
Yeah.
Very good. We'll go to some of the questions that have come in from the conference. So Andrew's asking, what do you think is the greatest barrier to knowledge uptake by producers? So Mike, you want to keep going on that one?
I guess tradition. I think it doesn't matter what line of business you're in, people are reluctant to change. And I think peer pressure, as I think might have been Bob mentioned earlier today, case studies. You need to look over your boundary fence sometimes. Maybe lack of extension services with departments of agriculture. Bob, I don't think there's one particular reason that looms, but it's a problem that has always been ongoing.
Sure. How about you, James? What do you think is the way to get over this barrier that is there with a certain proportion of the producer population, the uptake of new technology or new methods or whatever?
Well, I think, producers are very, very time poor. Like, that's well documented, so it's there's a lot of field days and that get about, and you'll see the ones that are working well at the moment are online webinars that are after hours. Now, there is a bit of a problem in that the traditional field day, and you see it, producers get a bit cranky with it all the time. They go to a field day and then they get a whole heap of other brand new four-wheel drives turn up with government officials, and they all get out and they're all getting paid, but you're not getting paid to be there, and you're expected to take their advice and change your practices. Like, that's age old, that argument, and it still stands true. I believe that there should be a standing subsidy arranged for producers that you can take time off your production, that you can access a grant. Yep, I'm going to take the day off today. I'm going to go here. I'm going to go upskill myself. And it shouldn't be a big bureaucratic nightmare, and it should be a really simple grant process that you can just do that. And I think that probably doesn't exist. And obviously they're leveraging technology so that after hours webinars with decent Q&A sessions that producers can make the most of, because it's easier to get on a webinar and not turn your camera on than it is to drive 3-4 hours and wait around for a cup of tea and whatnot.
Yeah, no, good suggestion and a good concrete thing for people to consider for sure. How about for you, Gus? What do you think the barriers are to adoption, or what do you think might push people's buttons into changing some of the fundamentals and the important aspects of their grazing business?
I like the sort of discussion in community and social, in that it's so important to have relationships and build relationships with knowledge brokers. So have them in your networks, but the extension officers, for them to build relationships, for them to be in an area. So we need a commitment from government departments to have the same person in the area for a long period of time to build relationships, so that they can get together people and pass information on and be seen as knowledge brokers. I don't see many relationships and people take them up. So I reckon relationships is really important and key to that.
I've just got one quick one.
Yeah, sure, Mike, please.
I've just got one quick thing to add there. It's just I guess the turning point in our business was when both Sue and I did the Grazing for Profit course. I've got to throw that plug in for Terry McCosker. That was what kick-started our business, and everything that we learned there we still apply today. So that I just, we seek education from an expert and put us on the right road.
Thanks very much, Mike. I think our time's up. There's two more questions there from Matthew Fletcher and Tim Emery. One more? We can have one more. That's good. We'll go to Tim Emery's because I think, Matt, you got a lap this morning. Tim's question is, to all three producers, is there 1 to 2 decision support tools that you couldn't live without in your business? Back to you, James.
I honestly don't think I could narrow it down to 1 or 2. I call it my toolbox. I got it. My saved file on my laptop is pretty big, and on my phone. But it's a pretty extensive list. I don't think I could narrow it down to 1 or 2. I really couldn't. I could probably narrow it down to 10. But the more information you've got access to that you can identify can result in a change in your business, and the better you can utilize that within your business, the more resilient you're going to become. So you need to understand where that information comes from, and then you need to understand how to apply it on your property, and you need to be able to do that quickly. So, a simple example of that would be a weather forecast. Most people can understand a weather forecast, but it might be a bit harder to understand a seasonal forecast. And then it might be a bit harder to understand a program like AgriWeb and the benefits that gives you. Or, for argument's sake, Richard Thackway's VAST framework. It's a landscape measuring tool. Like understanding that and how that affects your property and what that tool can do for you. So, and then if you're in the RCS, obviously stock days per hectare and all those sorts of things. So, I could not narrow it down to 2. No.
Yeah, fair enough. Right, I think we might have to pull it up there. Thanks very much, Mike, and thanks, Gus, from Wentworth in southwestern New South Wales, and thanks very much, James, from the North Burnett. So all the best. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you. Thanks, Bob.